My name is Toby White. I'm an associate professor of actuarial science and finance here at Drake University. And I also have Russell Pang in the room. He is a upper level student of the same two subjects, actuarial science and finance, and he'll be speaking about the student experience here at Drake today. First of all, I want to congratulate you on being admitted into Drake. I know you have a decision to make in the next few weeks or months, and please also let us know if at any point during this presentation there are audio or video difficulties. I think we're ready to start, and also if you have any questions along the way, go ahead and type them into the chat, or feel free to interrupt and we can address your questions as they come along. So let me start off by talking about the overall curriculum at Drake. You'll be here for 4 years primarily, and we have basically two 14-week semesters here. The first semester goes from late August to late December, and the second semester would go from late January through early May. There are some summer classes here at Drake, and there's also a January term, which is 3 weeks, and some of those J-term classes could take place off campus or even in different countries. As for the overall Drake curriculum, if you're going to be an actuarial science major, that's located within the College of Business and Public Administration. Some related areas might be mathematics, which is in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. We're also starting a new data analytics program basically next fall, right when you're coming in, and that's going to be jointly sponsored by the College of Business and the College of Arts and Sciences. Okay, so if you're a business school student, which is primarily what most of our actuarial students will be doing, there's basically 3 types of classes that you'll be taking at Drake. There are, of course, your actuarial science major specific classes, which I'll get into here in a little bit. There are your business core classes, and there are a few of those at Drake, which kind of distinguishes us between some of our other actuarial competing schools, because we're going to have you take a couple semesters of accounting and economics and finance, marketing management. Basically, you're going to dabble in all of the various business disciplines, so you can graduate with a very well-rounded business pedigree that will basically get you ready for the working world. And then there are also your distributional requirements. We call those areas of inquiry, where all Drake University students have to satisfy a class or two in several different areas. So before I start talking about the actuarial science classes in particular, I'd like to give you an overview of the actuarial system in the United States. There are 2 professional credentialing agencies. You may be aware of this already, I'm not sure, but just to review, there's the Society of Actuaries, SOA, and there's the Casualty Actuarial Society, the CAS. They're the ones who are going to give you your professional designations, which will either be ASA, ACAS, which would be an associate level, or FSA, FCAS, which would be the fellowship level. Here at Drake, we prepare students for the first 5 actuarial exams, which is almost enough to get an associateship in the Society of Actuaries. The only thing that would be missing would be some computer modules and a 3 or 4 day seminar that you would have to attend. So let me talk a little bit about the actuarial science curriculum now, and along the way I'll try to map out which actuarial exams correspond with those courses. So as you arrive here, if you haven't already completed any calculus, you would take a 3-semester calculus sequence. Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3. A lot of our incoming students and transfer students have maybe had some of that already, so you might start at a more advanced level. You also have to take a linear algebra class from the math department. But once you've had those classes, you're pretty much ready to start with the actuarial science classes. The first one our students take is the theory of interest. So interest theory, you might know that as, and that corresponds with the exam called Exam FM, which is Financial Mathematics. And the next course you would take is XI 131, which is our calculus-based probability course, which corresponds with Exam P. And after that, those are usually the first two exams that most students will pass, and some of our best students will actually pass those, during their first year and a half at Drake. And then you would go into the third exam, MFE, which is the Mathematics of Financial Economics, which really is heavy on financial derivatives, so things like options, forwards, futures, and swaps. We have a two-course sequence for that, 121 and XI 145. Following that, there's a life contingencies sequence, which corresponds with exam MLC, and that would be XI 150 and 151. And finally, we have a three-course sequence that relates to exam C, which is a long exam which includes credibility, simulation, Bayesian statistics, statistical modeling techniques, model construction, things like that. And that would be XI 132, 141, and 160. And right now, all of those classes that I just mentioned are required for our actuarial science majors, except for the 160 class, which is an elective. So overall, if you include the math courses along with the actuarial courses, you're looking at about 10 to 12 courses in the major. I should also mention that we have something called VEE classes, which is Validation by Educational Experience. And this is something that the Society of Actuaries and the Casualty Actuarial Society will also require. They used to have separate exams to test this material, but now they're having the universities cover these classes. And what you have to do is get an A or B in the class, and then you'd be exempt from having to take any additional exams. So there's one on micro and macroeconomics, which you would take during your first year here. There's one on advanced corporate finance, which would basically be the second semester of corporate finance after your Finance 101. We call it Finance 102. And then there's one on applied statistics and regression, which uses the computing languages R and SAS. And that would be XI 170, and that would be a class you would probably take during your last year at Drake. And again, you need to get an A or B in all those classes for that to count with the professional credentialing agencies. All right, so at this point, I'll pause and see if maybe Russell has anything to add about the academic experience, at least at Drake.
Okay, I would say it's pretty much balanced, and it helps prepare you for the actuarial exam quite a bit. I've taken most of the classes that Professor White here has mentioned, and it's been very helpful as far as me studying for actuarial exams. And I've also done that either over the summer or during the school year. So if there's a lot of classes here that they don't prepare you exactly 100% verbatim for the actuarial exams, but most of them prepare you enough that you can go in and walk in and sit for the exam. I still remember my MFE exam. So it's the third actuarial exam, the sequence. I had Professor White as my professor for both those sequences, XI 121 and 145. And I actually didn't even need the actuarial study manual to sit for the exams. I just studied his notes, did quite a bit of practice problems there, and passed on my first attempt. So I like the fact that the courses here are rigorous in the sense that it prepares you well for the actuarial exams and allows you to be comfortable when you walk into the setting knowing that you're prepared for it. So
a couple supporting points about what Russell was just talking about, and I see there's a question that was asked, and I'll get to that in a second. We also offer, and this is relatively new, just in the last couple years, exam prep seminars that are faculty-led, that are specifically devoted to practicing for the professional exams. So in our regular classes, our philosophy is not to try to teach to the exam, but to cover the core concepts in an academic setting, so the students get a really broad overview of the material and the big picture. So to supplement that, we have these 1 hour per week lab sessions for the first 4 exams right now. For the first 2 exams, they meet every semester, and they're basically tied to the class when you're taking the class. And the professors will basically do 6 or 8 sample exam questions from a past professional exam, and the students will have a little homework to do every week to practice on a particular topic. And if they go through that and fully participate, then they should really be ready to take and pass the exam when it comes around. The other thing I was going to say is that the typical graduating student from the actuarial science program at Drake will have about 3 exams, or maybe 2 or 3. We have some students who will graduate with 4 or all 5 of the first 5 exams. I'd say maybe about 3 to 5 students a year have 5 exams, maybe about 10 to 12 have 4 exams, but the typical student will have 2 or 3, and that is considered enough to get multiple full-time job offers. So I'll talk about internships and jobs later, but basically the general guideline is you want to have at least 1 actuarial exam passed to get an internship in the summer, and at least 2 actuarial exams to get full-time employment from companies. So the question that was asked when I was talking about the so-called VEEs is, if I manage to get an A or a B, can I skip the actuarial exams under the VEE? So I want to be clear, the 5 actuarial exams I was talking about are separate, so you still have to take those no matter what grades you get in the class. But there are some extra classes that you can take here that if you get an A or a B in those classes, the economics, the corporate finance, and the applied statistics regression classes, then yes, you will satisfy those exam requirements and you won't have to take those exams or those classes anywhere else. And that's part of getting your professional degree, your associateship in the Society of Actuaries, is to complete those requirements. If you don't get an A or a B, then some of our students will retake those classes a second time to make sure they satisfy the requirements, but that doesn't happen too often. Okay. Got it. All right, great. Let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the 4-year plan with respect to internships now and our career fair. So for a typical entering 4-year actuarial science major, they will have had 2 internships prior to the time they graduate. Some of our first-year students actually will get an internship after their first year, before their second year starts. That's not as common because not a lot of companies will offer internships to freshmen, but the majority of our students will probably have an internship between their sophomore and junior year, and then again between their junior and senior year. And we actually recommend that they go to 2 completely different companies during those 2 internship opportunities, even if they have a great experience the first time around, so that they can kind of while they're still here in college, kind of sample out 2 different parts of the actuarial profession and see which one they like better. So for example, they might do 1 internship at an insurance company and another internship at a consulting firm. And if they're really interested in insurance work, they might do a life insurance internship, and then a property and casualty, or maybe a health or a pension, or something that's more finance and investment related. There are also a lot of other non-actuarial internship opportunities that would be more in financial services, or could be with an insurance company as an underwriter, or maybe some sort of risk management position that is not purely actuarial. But even if you don't get an actuarial internship, there are other things that you can put on your resume that will continue to benefit you as you move along through your career. But there are a ton of actuarial science specific internships available. Our career fair takes place usually in the last week of September, or maybe the first week of October every year. And we typically get around 35 to 37-ish companies that are coming to Drake during a 2 or 3 day period that are all basically looking to hire Drake students, either for full-time employment or for summer internships, or both. And what typically happens, and Russell can talk about this a little bit too, is this: the student will submit their resumes a couple weeks in advance of the career fair. The companies will do some pre-screening, and then they'll invite people to sign up for over 30-minute interviews. Companies, each company will probably have between maybe 10 and 15 interviews they'll do on a 2-day period. And then there'll be a career fair that's basically open to everybody, open to all of our students. And we have over 300 majors. We have about, I think, 330 the last time I checked that are actuarial science majors. But at the career fair, you can go around and basically introduce yourself to all these companies and ask specific questions of companies you're interested in. And then the last day of that career fair week, there's a barbecue, which is more informal, where all of the students get together with all of the recruiters from the companies and have a picnic lunch at one of our local parks here. And then there's a fun kickball game that follows. But what typically happens after the interviews is that the companies, if they like you, they'll invite you into their actual place where they're located for a home office visit, which could be in Des Moines. There are a lot of companies here in Des Moines, but it also could be in a place like Chicago or Minneapolis or New York City. And then they may decide to give you an offer. And sometimes our best students will have many different offers that they kind of have to weigh. And I don't know if you want to talk about that whole process, especially maybe for internships and then maybe for full-time, about how that actually works.
Yeah, definitely. So as Professor White mentioned, a lot of the Drake students actually get positions right on campus with the actuarial career fair that Professor White was talking about. So one interview on campus, usually they'll screen you prior with your resume submissions. And then after that, you'll go on site. Some companies even have 2 on-site interviews, like one round, more of a group interview thing, and then second interview, again, one-on-one. So depending on the company, the interview structure and the hiring structure may vary. But as far then, once you go into your internship, the internship, some of them have a set period. So you start on X date, finish on Y date. Some positions decide, hey, we're flexible with your schedule. Whenever you graduate, whenever you end your semester, take a week off and then start. Usually I would say about 12 weeks is the normal, although some students do it for 9 weeks as well, depending on how the company is structured and what the internship requirements are structured. And they're all paid internships, so I don't do like work for free. One thing there is that that's a good place for you to sort of gain experience and apply the concept that you learned in those companies, in those classrooms into the company setting, so that you can kind of figure out how to apply all these concepts in real-world settings, which is key for companies when they hire for full-time. So typically you find students getting about 2 internships, some even getting 3 if they got to do the internship in their first year. And most of these companies see that as sort of an evaluative purpose. They look at you and they can analyze you, obviously with the view of hiring you full-time. And so that's kind of what I went through, is got 2 internships of different settings, as what Professor White mentioned. One was in a life insurance setting, doing global research and development, where I came up with sort of this research bulletin to investigate the relationship between population density and mortality. So that was a pretty cool experience. But then I also wanted to see the flip side of it. So I didn't know if I wanted to do insurance specifically or consulting. And then so my second internship was spent in Maryland doing financial risk management consulting, dealing with hedging for variable annuity products. So that was a pretty cool experience, and that made me realize that I actually wanted to go more into the consulting route, and so kind of move forward in that direction. But you'll find most students might even explore just the life insurance side versus property and casualty side, because there are differences between the SOA exams and the CAS exams, especially after you get your first couple of exams out of the way. So it's helpful to decide one way or the other going forward, although you don't have to do that right off the bat when you start. You can always take a couple of exams, take classes, do an internship, and then sort of figure out whether you want to do the property and casualty or the life insurance track, or the health in that respect. So
I see we have a couple more questions here, which are great questions. The first question is, what about students that transfer as juniors? Do they normally do just one internship? And if they're only going to go for 2 years, then yes, probably one internship would be sort of the mode value. Some of our transfer students even though they come here initially on a 2-year plan, will end up staying for 2.5 years, graduating in the fall. So for those students, which is quite a lot of our transfer students, there would actually be 2 internship opportunities after their first year and then after their second year, which would be right before the last semester they're on campus here at Drake. The second question was, speaking of consulting, what consulting firms generally tend to hire actuarial science students from Drake? I know Milliman and Mercer are 2 of them, and that's true. Are there any additional firms? And I would think Russell might actually know the answer to this more than I.
Yeah, so there's Towers Watson that regularly comes on campus to hire, and then the big 4 accounting firms, they all have their hiring and recruiting process here.
So like Ernst & Young,
Ernst & Young,
PricewaterhouseCoopers,
KPMG,
yep.
yeah, and Deloitte. So that we have students that have gotten interviews from them, and also full-time offers. I know a friend of mine who's currently actually working in Milliman who got offers from Deloitte and got offers from PwC and Ernst & Young as well, I believe. And he decided to accept Milliman, and I'll be working with him this coming August when I start. So there's a lot of opportunities there for you to kind of seek and explore the consulting world. And these companies, I might add, also have internship openings as well as full-time openings going forward, in different offices all around the country and all around the world as well.
So one thing we should probably mention is that Drake University is located in Des Moines, Iowa, and that's actually a key point because Des Moines is the second largest insurance center in the United States, and I believe the 3rd largest in the world. So I think only Hartford in Connecticut has a greater insurance presence anywhere in the United States. So that's really great for our students because there are many companies, probably on the order of 10 or so, that are hiring our students, and not just for summer internships. So we actually have quite a few students who are able to work 10 to 20 hours a week at these companies, even during the semester here. And that's for pay. So, it's pretty tough to sort of balance your work life and try to be a full-time student, but some of our, upper level students are able to manage that. Let's see, anything else on that front?
And I mean, you'll probably be, figuring out as you come along. And one thing to note as well is all students get one faculty advisor assigned to them. In my case, it's Professor White, and he's been really helpful trying to kind of figure out plans for me because I'm not sure what those things entail, and Professor White has worked in the industry already, and so he has some experience as to what kind of internships that I might be looking for, interview tips, the connections in the Des Moines industry, as well as just all around the country. And so he's been really helpful with me. I've sat down with him one-on-one. We've grabbed lunch actually this past couple of days just to talk about future career plans and what I'm going to do going forward. So just know that you'll get that resource as well here on campus, so that you're not kind of just left alone to, fend for yourself and figure out what you want to do with your life.
Yeah, speaking of advising, you will be meeting with your advisor, who is typically an actuarial science professor, at a minimum of once per semester. And it's not just to talk about your upcoming class schedule, but as Russell said, sort of where are you in the exam system? What are your career prospects? Are you thinking about any other majors? One thing we haven't talked about yet is that a lot of our actuarial science majors will major in something else along with actuarial science. The 2 most common pairings, since we're in the business school here at Drake, would be actuarial science and finance, and then actuarial science and accounting. And if you do 2 majors at Drake, you don't necessarily have to do all of the requirements for each major separately, because we have joint majors, which are kind of consolidating the requirements. So if you wanted to do, say, an actuarial science and finance joint major relative to just actuarial science, you might have to take about 5 extra classes, which is like a semester's worth of classes. So, for example, for our transfer students, if they do just actuarial science, they can usually graduate in 2 years. But if they decide to do a second major like finance or accounting, then they might stay for 2.5 years. Another major that is just starting up at Drake that is heavily related to actuarial science is data analytics. And that's sort of a hot area right now in the US and also among insurance companies and financial services organizations. They say can't seem to get enough data scientists. So a lot of our actuarial science students, I know from having talked to my advisees, are planning to do a data analytics minor or maybe a joint major or a double major between data analytics and actuarial science. So the types of classes you would take as a data analytics major would be some computer programming classes, heavier on statistics, obviously data analysis, generalized linear models. There'd be sort of a capstone class where you'd actually be working with some large data sets and doing some statistical modeling. So that's in a year just in time for you to come. So one more thing for you to think about. One other thing we haven't talked about yet, we have two student organizations here on Drake's campus that are heavily slanted towards the actuarial science population. And I'll introduce them, but I'll let Russell talk about them. There's the Drake Actuarial Student Society, and there's a fraternal organization called Gamma Iota Sigma. So the abbreviations for those are DAS and GIS. That's how you'll be referring to them when you're here. And you know, a great benefit that these organizations provide is that they really kind of help ease the transition for students from, you know, when they get here to getting used to college life to eventually getting used to professional life. So a lot of it is basically networking and trying to get you trained with how to interview for jobs and how to write resumes and how to basically present yourself in a manner that will be attractive to your prospective employers. So.
Yeah. So DAS is the Drake Actuarial Student Society, and what's nice about that is that a lot of alums, especially in the actuarial science world, are still remaining connected to DAS. And so a lot of times you'll find that there are a lot of speaker sessions that they invite back, a lot of case study workouts that students can do. Cigna, which is one of our big recruiters here on campus, and they're in the health side of things, and they're based out of Hartford, Connecticut. Had a sort of a case study workout session with some of our students a couple of weeks ago in our Alba Hall, and they got to pair up in teams and actually present a particular case workout. So that there's another opportunity apart from internships where you get hands-on experience, and they'll kind of coach you and tell you, you know, what went wrong, what things that you can improve on, and what they really do in the industry, so that you still kind of get a flavor of a particular pathway down the actuarial science road. Instead of just taking an internship there, because there's only so many internships you can do in that 4 year span here. So you get a more diverse view as well. And like Professor White mentioned, there's a lot of resume, some cover letter, critique sessions. They do run out, do like a late night run. Is it Perkins?
Perkins.
Yeah.
24-hour restaurant.
Yeah. So during finals week, close to finals week, the whole actuarial, the DAS organization goes out to Perkins to grab food and have a late night study session. So that's kind of more their social thing. So that's pretty nice. Now onto Gamma or GIS. They are more of like a fraternity type thing. So they incorporate that sort of brotherhood aspect to the actual science thing as well. But they have a big network all around the country. They actually have the Gamma Career Fair that they organize independently of the actual science career fair that they have. That's only open to Gamma Iota Sigma members, and so that's another opportunity to network with companies. So beyond that 35 or 37 companies that you already see on campus, some of them are overlaps, but there are quite a few more that you could kind of go into. And then apart from that too, they kind of work with DAS hand in hand to organize different actuarial and personal development seminars, and they do community service as well out in the Des Moines community. So different facets, not just specifically focused on professional, but also on like community service, and that's another opportunity for you to also have a greater leadership presence here on campus. You're leading these organizations or building your skills that way. Because one thing I would add too is employers, besides searching for obviously their technical acumen and expertise, also look at the way you conduct yourself, how you can organize yourself in teams, how you work together with other people. And so teamwork, leadership skills are essential in that. And I think being part of these organizations would sort of help distinguish you from everybody else and kind of put you in a good setting with respect to employers hiring you. So.
We also have a couple extracurricular competitions during the year, which are sort of unique. I'll speak about one of them, and maybe Russell can talk about the other. There's one that's in early February each year called the Brooks Weekend Case Competition, and it primarily attracts our actuarial science and finance majors, and we usually have 50 students participating every year. And basically there will be teams of 3 or 4, and on Friday morning you get a business case to work on, and you have until 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon to do an Excel analysis, a 5-page written report, and you also have to prepare a PowerPoint slide presentation that you're going to give to a panel of faculty judges on Saturday afternoon. And there are cash prizes and an awards ceremony the following Monday. I've always been a judge for the panel, and it's really something great to put on your resume. And it's sort of trying to simulate sort of a real world, maybe consulting experience where you're under some time pressure and you actually have to use your academic knowledge to solve a real world business situation that you might get into without getting into much specifics. And there's also the Krause Challenge.
The Krause Challenge, which is actually a class called Finance 190, Equity Evaluation and Analysis. So that's part of the finance track. So if you choose to joint major in actuarial science and finance, or double major in that respect, you can get into this class. And it's a highly selective class. They only pick 14 students, so you actually have to apply to get in. But what you do is you manage a portfolio of about 14 or 15 different stocks invested across all different fields, anything from the energy industry to the railroad industry, just different kinds of things, so in the healthcare industry as well, pharmaceutical. And what you do is you do an equity evaluation, so from within intrinsic value analysis, using different financial models to sort of project cash flows going forward, and then coming back and finding the intrinsic value of the company, and then comparing it with the current market price that the shares are currently selling for, and then make recommendations in front of the board on whether you should accept or buy additional shares, or you should sell, or you should hold your position. And then so there's 2 types of reports. One is the one that analyzing whatever we already have in our portfolio, and then the other is sort of going out there and finding companies that you think would diversify our portfolio and be able to add more returns on the alpha to the portfolio. And so it's a pretty great experience, because actually your decisions actually determine how the portfolio would do, and we actually have money invested into the portfolio. This is a result of $100,000 was invested by this guy Krause, and about quite a few years ago, and now it's gone up from $100,000 to about $420,000, $430,000, and all the result of students. And you don't get the money, but it's reinvested back into the portfolio to generate higher returns. So that's another sort of a practical setting that you can sort of apply knowledge that you've learned in all the financial classes and learn it there. One thing too is that our team, our university actually participates in what we call the CFA Challenge, and so that's a competition that each university sends one team, and they compete against all the other schools from Iowa and even the Nebraska area. And they do the same valuation as what we did I mentioned in Finance 190, but this time we're competing against the other schools, and we're sort of presenting into panelists, about 6 or 7 CFA charter holders, and you do the intrinsic value evaluation analysis using whatever models you have at your disposal from a financial perspective, and analyze a particular company. So last year we analyzed Meredith Corporation, one of the publishing companies. This year we analyzed Casey's, one of the convenience stores / gas companies. And so then you pitch it, and our team last year got 3rd place, and beating several other graduate school students teams as well from the region. And this year we placed 2nd. Again, reading the same thing. We lost to a graduate school student team who placed 1st. So a lot of opportunities for you to go out there and kind of build your brand, get your name out there, as well as build all the technical skills and practical experiences that will come in handy when you talk about your experience here on campus, as well as in terms of when you go into interviews and have a chat with any future employers. So.
Yeah, so thanks, Russell. Just a little bit of information about our schedule. Most of you will take classes that meet only twice per week. So our classes in the business school, at least, either will meet Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday. And there really isn't a whole lot going on Friday, so you can enjoy kind of a 3-day weekend most weeks, or use that Friday day to kind of get caught up on your studies. Our classes are mostly 3-credit classes, and they would have 75 minutes in length per week. So you get about 2.5 hours in the classroom every week for each class.
And I will also add to that is that most students on Friday use that opportunity to go down to the Des Moines community and get internships during the school year. You'll find that that's not uncommon at all, just to gain some experience. So they can work that full day, 8 to 5. And the students that work off campus as well as study here full time. So they'll maybe start their mornings early at 5 or 6 in the morning, go work for a bit, have a class at 9:30, so they work till about 9 o'clock, and then get done with classes at 2 o'clock, and then leave straight there, start work at 2:30 again, and leave about 5:30 or 6. So that's not really uncommon. But then Fridays are usually the days when they go all out, 8:30 to 5 full day. So that's another way for you to get experience that way. If you are an international student, there are several obviously visa restrictions that are imposed by the U.S. government that doesn't really allow you to sort of work on off campus while you also study. So that's something you have to check about. But if you're transferring and you're a U.S. citizen, that works perfectly fine, and you find that companies are more than willing to hire you to get experience in the industry that way.
Okay, so we're almost out of time, so I'm going to sort of wrap up by giving a summary of sort of maybe Drake's competitive advantage with respect to actuarial science. We are a CAE school. If you know what that means, it's a Center of Actuarial Excellence. There are 16 of those in the United States, and Drake is one of them, and one of the only ones in the Midwestern part of the United States. I think some of our best selling points that make us most unique from other actuarial schools is our size. We have 300 to 350 majors, and we have as many as 8 faculty members that are either fully or partially devoted to the actuarial science program. We're located here in Des Moines, as I mentioned before, which is the second largest insurance financial services center in the United States. And for me, I think a big thing is that the actuarial science program is in the business school as opposed to in the math or statistics or computer science department. So you're going to get a really strong background here on finance, economics, accounting type classes that are skills that are really highly valued by employers today. So along with the data analytics program that is starting off, and the focus that we have on communication skills. One thing we didn't mention before is there's a class on presentation skills and business writing. By the time you graduate from Drake with an actuarial science major, you will be very attractive to the employers, and we always hear from the employers how impressed they are with Drake students relative to some other schools, because they're basically hitting the ground running and ready for the workplace when they graduate. So
that's also why you find like a lot of alums that actually come back and recruit Drake students. It's because a lot of these companies are this may be the first time that they recruited a Drake student, and because the fact that the Drake student has done really well, both in terms not just in terms of technical skills, but also the ability to lead a team and present well and talk and communicate effectively. A lot of these companies are coming back now, second, third, fourth rounds, hiring Drake students left and right, just because of they know that, and they're confident that these students, when they graduate, will be able to carry themselves well, but also lead teams and be solid, both in technical perspective as well as in more of a practical sense. So.
Okay, so I think that's it for us, unless there are any remaining questions. Okay, very well. Thank you for your time. Um, and we hope to see you here in Des Moines, Iowa, sometime later this year.
Thank you very much.